So my number one film that shaped my love of film soundtracks is "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" from the year
Mhm.
2000, written and directed by the Coen brothers, starring George Clooney, John Turturro, Tim Blake Nelson, and John Goodman. And the plot summary: in the Deep South during the 1930s, three escaped convicts search for hidden treasure while a relentless lawman pursues them. So this movie is on my list, actually, in a similar ways to Goodfellas. I think the music makes this movie work. The music is just as much part of the mise en scène, which is, a term to mean, the production design, the camera work, the lighting, as those other things, like the visuals. It's really the soundtrack to me that completes that picture. And the movie's set, like it mentioned in the summary, during the 30s, during the Depression. And all these songs, while only one of them I think is an original recording, they're all songs of that time that do transport you back into that place and time. And as well, comment on the movie as it goes along. But just
Mhm.
before I get into it a little more, have you seen the film, listened to the soundtrack? What is your history with Oh Brother?
Yeah, I had not watched this movie, which is kind of embarrassing to
Oh,
admit. Yeah, I think the Coens, obviously, they are incredible geniuses. I admire them, but yeah, the film bros are gonna get mad at me. But I haven't seeked out their work, for whatever reason. But then, of course, when I watch it, I'm completely blown away. But it's not something I think about. So I don't know. There's something about the movie and Clooney, covered up in dirt when he's totally handsome, and all of it just was like a barrier for me to watch this movie. But I'm so glad I watched it because yet again, it's a masterpiece. Of course it is. It's
mm-hmm.
them.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably my top five favorite
Yeah.
directors of all time, and this is actually my favorite movie of theirs. I mean,
Oh.
arguably, there's ones that I might be quote unquote better, but this is my personal favorite
Mm,
of their movie. And again, a lot of it has to do with the soundtrack. I mean,
mm.
at the time when this came out, I don't know if it was similar in India too, but the soundtrack was a total phenomenon. One
It
Grammy
still
album of
is
the
in like
year.
the top 10 soundtracks on iTunes, at least.
Yeah.
It always is.
Yeah, it was a huge hit, and I
Yeah.
also it was unlike The Saint, where I mentioned like it helped me get into electronica music. I always had liked this old timey Americana folk music. Now I
Yeah.
hadn't heard of these songs and artists per se, but I like this type of
I do
music.
too.
And it was a nice kind of encapsulation of that. So even on its own, if you want to listen to a soundtrack or
Yeah.
just a compilation of Americana, the soundtrack does that. But within the context of the film, I think it really does set the mood of the Depression, and it's great hearing the juxtaposition of some of these songs, which are very very positive, and okay, there's going to be a better tomorrow, and
Right.
things will get better because it was at the time like you had to be telling yourself that because it looked
Yeah.
like the whole world was ending. And the music, I think, was uplifting people at the time. And that's why a lot of the music was a bit positive, much like in this film, even though there's a lot of darkness around them. There's KKK involved, kind of chasing them a little bit at a certain point. You deal with death, and obviously George Clooney's trying to get back to his wife who's scorned him. They're prisoners. So there's a lot of these dark themes, I guess you could say. But the movie is so light and cheerful, and the
Yeah.
music kind of helps kind of push that, I think, up because it is such fun, kind of cheery music.
Yeah. Music is great and it's fun and cheery, but I think it like you said, it also has like a deep sense of melancholy to it
Yes.
because these
Mm-hmm.
people are going through some existential times, like the other two, Totoro and what's the
Tim
other
Blake
guy's name?
Nelson.
Exactly. Who are supposedly dim-witted, but at the end of the day, they probably make better choices, even though they are, simpler minded in a way, perhaps, versus
Mm-hmm.
Clooney represents kind of the modern age that, oh, I'm the contrarian. I'm not going to do the things that you guys are doing. But ultimately, he has to come to his senses and admit some of the things that are just beyond his control. And I don't think all of that lands or would land as well if it's not for the music. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have to be transported in this time, in this place. But it's also done in like a fun, cheery way. I mean, without the music, this is a very dark movie, or it could
Mm-hmm.
be. But to your point, like the music subverts all of that, engages you. So I had such a good time watching this movie. There's some laugh out loud moments. Performances are great, beautifully shot. Obviously,
Oh,
it's Vince.
yeah.
So.
the,
Yeah.
the cinematography, which the first time they ever used like digital color correction, because they filmed the movie
Mm.
in the summer, so everything was green. And
Yeah.
if you've seen the film, I mean, you haven't. I'm talking to listeners now. If you've
Yeah.
seen the film, you know the whole thing is very sepia toned.
Right.
Everything's kind of yellows and golds, and that was all added in digitally. And there's the first time a cinematographer had ever done that. So credit to Deakins on that.
Yeah.
I also think Clooney's performance, this is the
It's
best
great.
use of what he is as a star. His
Yeah.
sort of like goofy, a little arrogant, but it's kind of sweethearted arrogance, not mean.
Yeah.
He's kind of dumb, but he's also kind of charming. It's all mixed together in this character. And that is Clooney when he works in films. Like that's his persona, for better or for worse. And I think this is the best example of that for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. Like after Ocean's 11, which
Yeah.
is sort of my all-time
Oh, yeah.
Clooney, like it's basically harnessing everything Clooney has to offer. This might be the second.
Yeah, but similar. I think it's Danny
Similar.
Ocean's character is similar-ish. And again, he's like kind of arrogant, but he's charming, but he's a crook, but at the same time, you care
Less
about him.
goofy.
Okay, yeah, a little less. Yes, you're right. Less goofy. Yeah, he doesn't have that cool the cool hair gel stuff, the Dapper Dan hair gel. I love that.
So
And
good.
his little like pencil mustache. Yeah,
So
he's so great in it.
He's
And-
vain and yeah.
I know, yeah, totally. Another thing as I was watching it for this too, just to think about, another theme of this movie is also just the power of music.
Yeah.
This is the dawn of recorded music, the dawn of the radio. There's a lot of plot elements in here that have to do with the fact that, they record this song by, they make up their band, Soggy Bottom Boys. They have Man in Constant Sorrow. It actually saves them at the end of the movie because everyone knows who they are because mass media is just starting and the power of radio. And I think that also is, you can read that as well as like, as an audience member, the power of the music that I'm experiencing also makes me love the movie and will go out and buy the soundtrack. So I'm still being controlled, or not controlled, led on by the power of the music in the same way that the characters in the movie also are too, in a way, because they're tuning in to hear about Soggy Bottom Boys and the politicians are trying to use music to get elected. And so it has a lot of those themes that are weaved into it too. And you're right. And religion, exactly.
Always has been such a close pairing. I mean, that's the power of music, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And I think this movie touches on that, and even in a meta way, because the soundtrack is one of the highest selling of all time. Again, won the Grammy. Everyone was listening to it in 2000, and to your point, still does today. And another soundtrack that is on my top 10, top 15 soundtracks I listen to still all the time. I kind of throw it on if I want to be in a good mood, and then it makes me happy, and then I want to go watch the movie again, and then it's just like a vicious cycle. If I watch the movie, I listen to the soundtrack for a week, and then go back and watch the movie, and which actually the Blues Brothers is like that too. Lesser extent, The Saint. I listen to the soundtrack. I don't necessarily have to go back to watch the movie.
Yeah.
But I think that's the power of a soundtrack. You can either stand on its own and love it, or one makes you go right back into the movie and watch it again. This is definitely one of those for me. So I'm glad you checked it out. And I guess for listeners who don't know, the title of this movie comes from Sullivan's Travels, which is a film that we covered on our podcast last year that I had actually never seen that movie before, and I always wanted to because it was obviously alludes to this movie because that was the movie they were trying to make within Sullivan's Travels. So it's. So I guess this is my gift back to you. I've seen this one, and your gift to me was seeing Sullivan's Travels, which I had not seen before and also really enjoyed too.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. That's such a great connection. And once again, speaks to the genius of the Coens to kind of pick that up and kind of go with it. Yeah, that's pretty brilliant. The other thing I was going to say about this kind of music, which is how I feel about country music as well, that it's, at least to me, this is music in its purest form, because what is music? It is a form of storytelling. I always think of the origins of music of, communities gathering together. And this sort of has that kind of very pure sense of, I'm going to tell you how I feel. I'm going to talk about what is going through my mind and in the place and the time that I live in. And it's going to be melodic and it's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy it. So I don't know. There's something very pure in that. Which I guess dovetails with the movie and the time period in its but that's what makes it timeless as well, I think.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree. That's why this movie, the Appalachian folk music or whatever you want to call it, people still listen to it today. It still influences a lot of country artists and pop artists, even today. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.